So because I had to reboot, you're actually going to see 2 separate recordings for today's lessons, okay? Part 1 and part 2. All right. Okay, the checkerboard. All right, guys, so today we are going to start working towards abstracting multiplication. Abstracting multiplication. Which means doing multiplication without the checkerboard, just on paper. Now, just a note to teachers, if you have students that have already abstracted it on their own, which happens, okay? Or parents show them, whatever it is, or an older student may show them, then they don't need to do any of these lessons, all right? It's an easy enough jump, I think, that they can go ahead and do it on their own. That's great, all right? Just make sure that they're doing it correctly and that they understand every step and why they're doing it, all right? So you would do a little assessment where you sit down with the student and say, okay, show me, let's come up with a multiplication problem and go ahead and show me how you do it abstractly, and I want you to explain to me all the steps. If they can't explain all the steps, then yes, you need to bring them back to the materials. Okay. So I want to do just a quick review of the checkerboard because we haven't seen it in a while. So I just want to quickly just review that unit times unit is units. 10 times unit is tens, 100 times units is hundreds, 1,000 times units is thousands, unit times 10 is 10, 10 times 10 is hundreds, hundreds times 10 is 1,000, 1,000 times 10 is 10,000, and likewise for the next 2 rows, all right? You get the idea. Note to teachers, I want to show you, I mentioned to you guys that I made my, I encourage you to make your own checkerboard. And I have a sample here. I found it in my album. So I think maybe we'll go ahead and use my homemade one, just so you see how it's used. All right, so hopefully I have enough. So you see it's just a bunch of red squares, blue squares, and green squares. That's all it is, all right? So the first problem I want to work on today is 11 times 11. 11 times 11, all right? So I really only need, let's see, blue, green, blue, red, blue, red, green. Okay, that should be all I need. Maybe I will need this. Okay. Maybe I won't use this because I don't want to confuse you. Okay, but you see how I would lay it out. I kind of figure out I have a 2x2. Maybe I'd put a blue one here, but that's the only part. That's the corner of the checkerboard that I'm going to need. All right. So I would just go ahead and lay those out. All right. But let's go ahead and just use the regular checkerboard so as not to confuse anybody. Just wanted to show you that. It's a really easy project. It's kind of cool for the students to have their own checkerboard. All right. So let's see. I'm going to fold this up a little bit so it takes up less room. So I really only need that much showing. Okay. 11 times 11. So we're going to first set up, let me get my tiles. If you recall, the tiles, the white tiles are used for the multiplicand, and the gray tiles are used for the multiplier, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and first make my multiplicand of 1 and 1. So I need a green 1 because my units is 1. There it is. So I have 11 times 11, then I'm going to get a a blue 1. There's my multiplicand of 11. And then I'm going to make my multiplier of 11 right there. Okay. Good for that. Okay. 1 unit taken once is 1. 110 taken once is 10. If you remember, just by placing a 1 there, that becomes a 10, right? Because this is blue. All right, I'm finished with the unit of my multiplier. I'm going to turn that over and move on to the tens. So 1 unit taken once, 1 unit taken 10 times is 10. 110 taken 10 times is 100. Okay, I'm simply going to move everything over. And of course, my answer is 121. I can replace this with a 2-bar just to be nice and neat. And I can turn this over. I'm done with my calculation. I'm actually going to rewrite this on a bigger piece of paper because I want to show you how this gets recorded. So 11 times 11, all right? So I'm going to actually write, so let me show you something. 11 times 11. I'm going to get some markers or highlighters in my 3 primary colors. My 3 hierarchical colors. I have blue, green, and red. Okay. So what we've said is that I'm going to start with my green. So let's go ahead and write under here. This is going to be my units. This is going to be my tens, and these are going to be my hundreds. Okay? My units, tens, and hundreds. So when I multiply a unit times a unit, I get a unit, right? And our answer was 1 right here. Okay? You see that okay? All right. Okay, that's the only way to make a unit, yeah? All right. Now, let's look at the next step that we took was the tens times the unit. Is that what we did? No, we did unit times unit, and then we did unit times 10. Unit times 10 gives me 10, right? So I'm going to put a 10 right there. All right. Actually, I think what I would like to do is, I don't want to confuse these things for ones. So I'm going to actually, instead of using the highlighter for the numbers, I'm going to actually write them down. Okay. But we have another way of making tens, and that is unit times tens. So we also did this, unit times 10. And that gave me another 10. Right? Okay, that takes care of all my 10s. Now, the next thing that we did is we did tens times tens. Tens times tens is the only way, in this case, to make 100. So we had 100. So I can add everything together and I end up with my answer of 121. That's exactly what we did on the checkerboard. Okay. Questions? All right, so now I would like to do, just see what they do next. So actually earlier I said to you that these would be 4th grade lessons. They're indicated in the album as 4th and 5th grade. All right, so you're gonna have plenty of 5th graders that have not abstracted multiplication yet. All right, you'll have plenty of those. All right. I wanna do another example before we move on. This will be the last example that we do with the checkerboard. After this, we're going to move right to abstraction. And you'll see that the abstraction will happen in steps. It will happen in steps. In a moment, I'm trying to find my example here. All right. I can't find it, but we'll go ahead and do it anyway. All righty. So questions on this? We're good? All right. So now I'm going to do a slightly more complicated problem. We are going to do 111 times 111. So let me just find my tiles here. Okay, so now I have 111 times 111. All right. And first we're going to go ahead and do it on the checkerboard, and then we'll move to the notation. As always, we're going to start with, let me turn these over actually. I should have done that before. I am using the units of the multiplier. Units times units. 1 times 1 is 1. A 10 times 1 is 10. 100 times 1 is 100. I am finished with my units in the multiplier. I could turn it over. I'm ready to move on to my tens. A unit, 1 times 10 is 10. 10 times 10 is 100, 100. And 100 times 10 is 1,000. I'm now finished with my tens in the multiplier. I'm now ready for my hundreds in the multiplier. Units times 100 is units, 1. 10 times 100 is 1,000. And 100 times 100 is 10,000. I'm actually going to need a little bit more checkerboard here. Let's see if I can do this without messing up my whole layout. Probably not. Okay, there we go. That's good. I did it. Can you still see everything? Yes, you can. All right. I'm finished with my hundreds in the multiplier, which means I'm finished with the whole problem, right? For all intents and purposes. All I have to do is bring everything down the diagonal. All right, and do some substitutions. I'm going to substitute this for a 2 bar. I'm going to substitute this for a 3 bar. And this for a 2 bar. And I see that my answer is, I'm just going to record it, 12,321. 12,321. So all I've done here is record my answer. Nothing new here. We've done this a million times. All right, now I would like to do the notation using our cross multiplication like we did before. By the way, I really object to this, calling this cross multiplication. Let me bring up my other picture that we did for the last lesson. And I'll tell you why I object. So on the one hand, I really like the terminology because of the cross, of the X there, to call this cross multiplication. But here's my objection. When you get to pre-algebra and you start working with proportions, proportions being the equality of 2 ratios. Let me show you an example. So I could say 2 is to 3 as 4 is to 6, for example. All right? 2 is to 3 as 4 is to 6. When you're teaching children in pre-algebra how to solve proportions, especially if you have a variable in here somewhere, what you do is you cross multiply. This is called cross multiplication. And you show them that if you multiply 3 times 4, I'm writing upside down, guys, so beware. 3 times 4 is equal to 2 times 6. 2 times 6. That is cross multiplication. Okay, so this technically has nothing to do with cross multiplication. And I have plenty of students in pre-algebra that are forever confused with what is cross multiplication because of this very fact that in Montessori we use this terminology. I would say really don't use it at all because you're just going to confuse the issue. This is cross multiplication. That's what the universe recognizes as cross multiplication. All right, so make a note to yourself to try not to use that terminology. Okay, so now let's start the notation again and see what we can do here. I'm going to write hold on. All right, I'm actually going to move away from the checkerboard. I want to show you something online so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to see if I can find what I'm looking for. No, I don't have it. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We'll just do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and analyze again. And please keep me straight if I make a mistake, okay? Because I'm looking at this upside down. All right, I would like to show with a green highlighter all the ways to make units, tens, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. So I'm just going to write unit, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. Unit, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. Actually, let me add an H to the thousands to differentiate it from the tens. All right. Okay, the only way to make units is units times units. That's it. Okay. And we see from the checkerboard our answer was 1. Okay. It's the only way to make units. All right, how can we make tens? We can make tens.
Move it a little bit up because we don't see that.
Yes.
No, I mean on your table, like slide up.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. There we go. All right, how many ways do we have to make tens? Well, we can multiply tens by units, and we can multiply units by tens. So we have 2 ways of making tens. And for this, the first time we did it, unit times, we did 10 times unit first. It gave us 110. And then we did the second one, we did units times 10, and that gave us another 10. And of course, if we go back to the checkerboard, we see we had 2 tens. All right, how many ways do we have to make hundreds? So let me get my red highlighter. All right, the first thing we did is we did, everything's blowing away. Don't blow away. It's nice and breezy. Okay. The first thing we did on the checkerboard is we did hundreds times units. So we did hundreds times units. And then the second time we made, I'm sorry, that was units times hundreds. The second time we made it this way. But there's another way to make hundreds, and that is 10 times 10. So every time we have three different ways. We got three different hundreds. All right, so I'm gonna get my red marker and just record all three hundreds that we got. Of course, you can also just write 2 or 3, okay? The children can see it right away. You don't need to do it this way. If you prefer, just write 2 right away and 3 right away. That's fine. All right, so now let's move on to thousands. Any questions so far? All right.
Would you please slide it a little bit up again? Sorry.
Sure.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Let's move on to thousands. So how many different ways do we have to make thousands when we have a 3 by 3? Well, units times 100 gives us 100, so we're not going to make it there. So we have to start with our 10, right? So the first time we're going to make thousands is if we multiply 10 by 100. Okay, thousands are green because it's the unit of the thousand family. So 10 times 100 gives me thousands. Likewise, 100 times 10 gives me thousands. Okay, and in this example, that's the only way to make thousands because we don't have anything in the thousands place in our original problem. So in my red mark, I mean my green marker, I'm going to record, and they're right there, my 2000s. Isn't this elegant? I love this. I think it's beautiful. All right. So now we know we have an answer, 10,000.
Monica?
Yes.
Quick question, I'm sorry. The top 1,000 though, would that go below? Like you have 1,000. I'm pointing with my cursor and you can't see it. So you have 1,111 at the top, but that top 1,000, wouldn't that go below the other one instead of on? Right, wouldn't that top one go below? Am I looking at that incorrectly?
Below what?
The other 1,000.
It doesn't matter.
So wouldn't that top one, so the top one I was just thinking would be blank because that was 111.
No, but we're looking at the answer right now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're analyzing the answer. So
Okay.
we said there's 2 ways to make 1,000.
Right. Yeah, I just thought the placement was not correct in writing it up at the top because I thought the top number was supposed to be just 111.
No, we're analyzing the product.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to 10,000. There's only one way to make 10,000, and that is multiplying 100 by 100. Is that right? Yeah. That's the only way, right there. And that is, of course, why we only have one of them. Oops. Yeah, blue's right. Okay. So if we add all this together, we end up with 1,000. I'm sorry, 1 unit, 2 tens, 3 hundreds. Ah, is that backwards? No. Oh my gosh. Is that backwards? Yes or no? Is that okay, Marjorie? Shake your head yes or no. It's okay? Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, and 2. Should that be, no, that should be green, I'm sorry. This needs to be green. Green. And the last one is blue. So there's my answer. 12,321, which is what we got. Which is what we got right there. 12,321. All right. Okay, so let's see what's next. So next, you're going to do a bunch of these problems from the task cards, and you are then we're going to move on, and we're going to be done with the checkerboard, and we're going to be ready to do some problems abstractly. So actually, here's what I was looking for before. This is posted on Google Classroom. Okay, and you see here, they just wrote in, they didn't write, 1, 2, 1, 1, they just wrote in the right things, okay? All right. So now, let me find my next problem, which we're going to do without the materials. Okay, I think the best way to do this is to just show you. Let me put this away. Best way to do this is going to be I'm going to share my screen with you. Do you guys need a break? Raise your hand if you need a break. Everybody in Prague raise their hand. All right, let's take we'll take a 20-minute break. We'll come back at 1/2 past the hour. Thank you.